What's going on, guys? This is Wyatt Burn Outdoors, and today we're going to be, getting more political and stuff, and we're going to be talking about how hunting actually saves lives of animals, of endangered species, game species, non-game species, everything. There's a huge movement lately, and it shows in the statistics that less people are hunting, and, there's a lot more animal rights activists, pushing and changing our wildlife laws. They believe for the better, but in turn, in the long run, it's actually worse for the health of our wildlife. Now, we're going to focus mostly in California here because that's where I hunt, but most of these topics, most of these bullet points are in general, hunting in general. But for one, hunting creates value for animals, okay? It creates a reason to actually protect them. In the grand scheme of things, when you're going through your day-to-day life, you're going to work, you're paying your bills and stuff, you really don't care about the environment around you. You really don't care about wetlands, you really don't care about the mountains, you don't care about habitat of animals. Why? Because there's no reason for you to care. You are not taking from that resource. You're not, if that resource were to disappear, your daily life would not really change, okay? For hunters, their daily lives would change. So, hunters and fishermen were on the front lines of protecting habitat for the animals they wanted to hunt and catch and trap, etc. So we created a value for these animals, a reason to tell our lawmakers, tell developers, we need to protect these areas, and we need to not only protect habitat, but increase habitat, right? So, 2 is money raised by hunters. So our entire funding for our wildlife programs are based off of hunting tags and licenses. That's for pretty much the entire United States. I do not know of a wildlife agency that does another way of funding. In Wisconsin, 50% of their funding is from license and tags. So that's huge. Here in California, the money raised by California hunting licenses alone is $6 million, and then just for California deer tags alone was an extra $4 million, okay? Those are just for licenses and deer tags. In total, hunting tags and licenses combined bring in over $24 million for the state to use towards wildlife programs and stuff. And that's the thing, by law, this money cannot be used in any other way than to support the state of California's wildlife. So if we had no hunters, if hunting was illegal, nobody hunted, that'd be $24 million that the state no longer has to put towards wildlife programs, protect habitat, etc. Let's see what else here. So, these funds, this money, that $24 million, what is it providing? People say, oh, it's for the wildlife program. Well, what does that mean? Well, that's all the studies, that's all the protection. So, when they don't get their money in, they're not able to put officers out there and actually protect these animals, catch poachers, etc. It goes into the entire operation of California's Fish and Game, which is now called Fish and Wildlife, but the old school way is Fish and Game. And also, right now, California is struggling with funding their wildlife programs, and they are pushing for more hunters. I think it went from like 1990, 1980s, there's about 15 million hunters in California. Our population has increased overall, and the population of hunters has actually dropped to about 12 million today. So that's a huge problem. That's funding that the state is not getting that they used to count on. And they have to deal with a larger population and more problems now with less funding. Now we're going to go into third-party organizations. So we don't just generate money for the state to run their wildlife program stuff. Hunters are taking it into their own hands to protect this wildlife, protect habitat. A huge one that I would push out is California Waterfowl. That is a huge organization here in California. They do a lot of work, youth programs, habitat restoration, you name it, they do it. Other programs, Delta Waterfowl, California Deer Association, I mean, there's a lot of third-party organizations that hunters have brought together. They do fundraising, they do dinners, they do the raffles, you know, all that, and they're generating money to bring in new hunters to the sport, protect habitat, all that stuff. So on top of the $24 million that we generate just for the state, I don't have the numbers generated from third-party organizations because, you know, that's a lot of info and I don't really have access to that. But I can guarantee now we're pushing, I bet you we double that. I bet you we put in about $50 million a year if you add in third-party organizations, which is a huge, huge amount of money that is going towards wildlife. Now, I hate to say it, animal rights activist groups, stuff like that, they're not throwing that money. They're not gonna take that chunk and say, okay, well, we're gonna start paying for it now and stuff. No, it's the hunters that, you know, your public land that you take your walk on, that you do your bird watching on, even though it may not be huntable, if it's a state wildlife refuge or something like that, even a county wildlife refuge, depending on how the taxes are there, they are funded by hunters for you to use, and it's because we, you know, also need zones for ducks to be protected or other wildlife to be protected and not hunted, and we pay for that land. We pay for the land that we will not hunt. So that's another reason why a lot of people don't understand the reach that we have, and that, you know, we actually benefit the community. Hunters benefit the community around them. More public lands, more wildlife restoration, etc. Now, we're going to talk about game bird clubs here. Now, this is pretty much the reason I'm bringing this up is, you know, wild pheasant population here in California is like nothing. And the few wild pheasants that they are there, I can almost guarantee are around lands where a bird club is and used to be a bird club bird, if that makes sense. But pretty much the pheasant population in California wild has dropped. So there is a huge demand for bird clubs here for pheasant hunting. Now, Birds Landing is one of them, super popular. We've had a few close in the area around the year. They've just gotten bigger because of it. But the reason why I'm bringing this up is because of this game bird club. That is literally the reason why pheasant populations, or a pheasant, is even in California, to be honest, is because these hunters want to hunt pheasants, and there's enough money there for this club to breed them, actually buy them from a breeder, release them, and let people hunt them. Now, again, we don't get all the birds that they release. We were talking to one of the people in the field that releases the birds, and he was saying that year there was like 2,500 that they had shot, that they had put out and hadn't been shot yet. So I mean, that's 2,500 pheasants that are somewhere, either on the property or off the property, and if they survive the rest of the shooting season, they're left the rest of the year. I mean, they pretty much become wild, especially if they travel off property and they start acting like a wild bird. Here in California, conditions are right. You know, we do have a small wild pheasant population, so it can grow because of that. And so yeah, that is pretty much the reason why there is any pheasant here whatsoever. So this game bird club is pretty much continuing a species, and that's like, it's kind of what hunters do, you know, and this gets into the endangered species kind of thing where people are not liking trophy hunting and stuff like that. But in general, if you're having people pay all this money, you're able to keep a species alive. Without these game bird clubs, dude, I bet you there would be so few pheasant hunters in California. It'd be impossible to get wild pheasants. It'd be very, very, very rare for you to be getting wild pheasants. It used to be big way back when. I'm not really sure what happened, but the wild pheasant population has taken a large drop in California. You can really ask anybody. And because of the game bird clubs, we have a population that is large enough that we can hunt. So this is pretty much the reason why you need hunting to save animals in the long run. A lot of people don't understand, especially on the animal activist side, they don't really understand the good that hunting does. I don't know if they just don't want to understand it. They don't want to hear it because it goes against their ideology. But the hunters, we're on the front line of protecting our lands, protecting habitat for animals, because we are actually using those resources. We actually care about those resources. I want my children to hunt. I want my grandchildren to hunt, etc. So if I don't have a population of game species that is sustainable, then my love, my passion and stuff is gone. And so I'm not going to let that happen. And that's why, you know, we push so much and do so much work and stuff, no matter how much crap we get, and no matter even if the wildlife laws are going against us, because we do really care about these animals. So I hope this was a good video. I know it's kind of long, might be a little confusing at parts, but in the long run, hunters are good for the environment. Because of us, we've gotten a lot done. We've protected a lot of species, and you know, we want to see this continue. So hope you guys enjoyed this video. Like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Happy hunting and fishing.